Pretty good. Alright, so as you can see, it's removed, and what you can also see is, looking at it from this angle, that it actually curves back in, so it's a bit like overblown, which is pretty much okay, because we're at we're exactly at 24 centimeters. And so if you think about a perfect half dome, we would have to cut it around about here. But obviously we need a certain amount of height, and when you look at the old pictures, which I put one in here, then there is like framework, so to speak. So that also holds the hinge, and this is actually going to be fiberglass, and so basically the fiberglass will go from here, from the highest point from your perspective, down here, and cutting it just around here then basically will give me a lot of beef, so to speak, where I can put the fiberglass on, and also produce a nice surface here that will seal on the submarine itself. So that's how we're going to do it, and we'll see how that turns out. Hey, so as you can see, our dome's sitting on the boat, which doesn't mean anything yet. And if you look closer, you will see actually there's another acrylic plate underneath, and this will obviously we'll cut this out, so there's a rim which will then be glued to the inner part, and will basically act to center the dome on the entrance. And at this step that we create, therefore, there will be the seam or the seal that then is squeezed on the frame of the submarine, and will make sure it's tight. And as a couple of people asked me when we started to make the dome about diving and depths and why we do not make certain things more modern and better. Again, there's no intention to dive this boat in the meaning of using it for something. There will be a test dive, most probably in August or September, which will be a maximum of 9 meters, basically to prove to ourselves that this thing works and to have a little bit of fun, but then basically it's a museum piece, and I want to stick as much to the original as possible. And this is already a bit more modern and better with that step, because in the original basically has a fiberglass rim which goes like around here, which we will create as well, also for optical reasons. And then underneath this fiberglass was a piece of rubber, and I think that's a lousy way of sealing it. So a little bit more, comfort, safety, whatever you want to call it. But generally we will build it the way it sits in the museum, because we want to keep it as original as possible. So as you can see, even if it looks a little bit nasty, that's foam. Here's the tube. You all know that, for example, when you install a window in a house. And so this is going to cure now for a couple of hours, and then I'm going to trim it down, and then I can fiberglass. Sorry, just had to get that on the cardboard. And then, yeah, I can create that fiberglass rim, and yeah, let me show you how this is done. Yeah, and here also, not sanded down yet, but just fit it in. This is the rim I just showed you before, and the dome goes here on top, and then we will have a ridge here where the seam is, the seal is inside, and this will then close the hatch permanently and yeah, watertight. So yeah, there's already a couple of things installed. So this is the vent for the boat itself. This is the vent for the yeah, perfect. This is the vent for the dive tank. It's the depth gauge. Yeah, the tanks I showed you before. And yeah, also installed new stainless hardware. Yeah, the engine's on there. I think I showed you that before. So that's a sample for the rub rail. This is ordered. Will be here next week. Yeah, it's coming together. All right, you remember the mess yesterday. So as you can see, we roughly cut it down. So you get an idea of what it's going to look like. And now it's actually a lot of hand sanding to get it into a really nice shape. Afterwards, there's going to be some putty on it, and then it can dry overnight, and tomorrow we actually laminate it, and then we're going to install it. So, as I was working alone today, I couldn't film while I was laminating, but you can see that the block for the hinge is in there. It's all covered in epoxy and fiberglass, obviously not sanded. This is the block that's used to close the hatch. There's a hole from underneath with a thread in it. And obviously that gets sanded and then painted black. And yeah, the rod is there. This piece here is just temporary. It was basically just to have a reference. And this one's done. So here's the sealing plug for the diving chamber, and here's a rod that goes to this one. And if I pull the lever forward inside, actually this one pulls the plug out there, the spring to the inside. So once the lever is released, the spring pulls the plug back in and it's shut. So yeah, things are moving forward.